Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with Suits, Season 7, Episode 9 review. So, I thought this was a pretty good episode. Personally, I thought this was kind of really the definition of a bridge episode. You know what I mean? Last episode, episode 100, I think I even said it in that one, but I thought that really could have been the finale of the season. I would have been happy with that just being the end of it. But, for some reason, they kind of set it all up like that. Maybe because, it's it's the episode 100, right? So they want to do something special for that, and I get that, and it was a really good episode. But I just feel like, we still have 2 episodes left in this half season, right? So just kind of a weird timing for, all the storylines to wrap up and stuff. So, yeah, that's that. But yeah, no, I thought it was total, bridge episode set up a lot of stuff for next week. Not a lot of stuff happened this week, but it kind of introduced, I think two newish characters, one really new and one that we have seen before, and then sort of just builds a storyline for next episode, and it should be a good finale. There's a lot of stuff in this episode that is really going to be cool in the finale. So yeah, we'll have to see that. I'm excited for it next week, and yeah, so there's only 1 episode left now of Suits, so it'll be a little unfortunate, to be honest. I'm gonna miss it, but we'll be back, I think, in January or February, for the the last 6 episodes, episode 11 to 16 of season 7, and then I'm not sure where the show's gonna go from there. But if season 8 comes, then I'll definitely be here to review it. Yeah, so we'll have to see. But anyways, yeah, pretty good episode personally. For me, had a few things that I didn't like, I will be honest, but there were some things I did. And yeah, so anyways, we'll get to that at the end. But first, yeah, let's just do a recap of the episode here. So we see at the very beginning this sort of like montage thing of Lewis making his way to the office, which was kind of cool, and he's kind of imagining all of this, the whole office, yelling or shouting shame at him, shame, shame, and stuff like that, which is actually the episode title this week. So yeah, that was kind of interesting how they incorporated that. Obviously, that's why it got its name. And yeah, so, we kind of know at this point he's imagining it, that would never happen. But this kind of shows us that he regrets what he did with Sheila last episode. And, he's really feeling the effects of that. And, to be honest, I didn't think we see after effects with Lewis. I mean, if Donna actually went through with it, I think for sure, that would be, something I would definitely expect from her, to have regrets and have feelings about it. But for Lewis, I didn't expect this at all, right? Like, Lewis, just being the guy he is, he walked right in the room last episode, so I didn't think that he was going to be, have regret or whatever. So, but he does, and obviously, he should, right? But it's Lewis, so you never know. But yeah, so it's definitely cool to see that little montage of it and kind of show us in that regard. So then Lewis goes to Brian after he kind of walks in, and Brian, I think he gives him a case or something, but basically Brian tells him that he's having trouble with the case he's working on, and he says, I think they stole our nipples or something like that. And then, of course, Lewis makes a joke out of it, of course. I love all the, innuendos and stuff that Lewis goes on about. It's kind of funny. But yeah, so Brian says that, he called for a meeting, and the other lawyer, never responded. And Lewis recognizes right away that the lawyer's trying to, kind of screw him out of the case. And, since Brian hasn't set a meeting with them, that means, that they can hit the market or whatever in a certain amount of days. So Lewis springs into action, of course, and kind of picks it up with Brian and says he'll help him out, because obviously, Lewis isn't going to take that disrespect from this guy. So yeah, that was cool to see. So then Mike tells Harvey about a new deputy AG, Attorney General, named Andrew Malik. And so, he tells him that he's been winning a lot of cases. I think it said that he had a 15 streak, win streak record-wise, with his courses lately, and he's in the paper. And he tells Harvey that he wants him to win a case against him, and says that, he's made him be on the defense this whole time, with the whole Alex prison case sort of deal. And now, he wants Harvey to go on the offensive and try to take out this Andrew Malik, who's supposed to be a big shot, or a big shot, just a big shot right now, in news and in the world of law. So this is kind of like something nice Mike's trying to do for him, a favor. So then we find out Mike has already signed a client who Malik is already prosecuting. So he basically convinced her to take them on instead of a different lawyer that she had. And so it sets up now that Harvey's going to go after this guy. I really like that little introduction there. So then following that, we get Harvey and Mike going to meet this Malik guy. I'm just going to refer to him as Malik, by the way, in this little recap thing. So, he goes to meet him, and I think they're in the gym or something, which is kind of cool. We haven't seen Harvey in the gym boxing in a while, by the way. I just want to mention that. This kind of remind me of it. So we find out that this Malik guy worked with Harvey at the Attorney General's office years ago. Basically this guy has it out for Harvey because, he thinks he worked a lot harder than him and got, not even anywhere close to the amount of recognition that Harvey got. He didn't work all these big-time cases, but he still did, some good work at the office. So, he mentions Cameron Dennis, of course, which, we know him, from previous seasons and that whole storyline. So that was interesting that they're kind of bringing that up again. But also, I mean, I kind of have a critique here because, I don't think they really had to make up the story that he worked with him before, because we haven't seen this guy before. We didn't see him in any of the flashbacks that we've had in recent seasons where we got told this story about Harvey and Cameron Dennis. So, I don't know, to bring him in now and say that he was there but we just didn't see him, just kind of, I don't know, I feel like they could have just brought him on and not gave him that backstory, and I would have still felt the same way about him. That's just my little critique there, but not a big deal. I like the background, right? I like that story. I just feel like it's a little bit unrealistic that we didn't see him in the past in those flashbacks where it showed, basically all the important stuff, but it left out him. So, but obviously Harvey forgets about him as well. He doesn't even recognize him. So, that also helps the story as well. And, maybe that we didn't see them because Harvey didn't even know him, right, back then. So that could be it too. But anyways, so we basically learned from this whole meeting that it's going to be a tough fight for Harvey. It's not going to be as easy as maybe Mike thought it was going to be for him. And it's going to be a tough fight to the finish. So that's a interesting little meeting there. Kind of remind me, honestly, of the meetings with Travis Tanner and Harvey. We haven't seen him in a while either, but yeah, that'd be kind of cool to see him. I don't know. I feel like his time in the show is done. I mean, I think he came back twice after the first time. So I feel like his story arc is kind of over. But it'd be kind of cool to see that character again come back in some way. Maybe, for asking for help from Harvey or something. But that's what this kind of reminded me of. So then Lewis and Brian go meet with this other lawyer. His name's Hank. I didn't get a last name. This is, one of my favorite parts of the episode, where this lawyer says, "Oh, you're from Pearson Spector," and he just leaves out Lit, obviously, right? And it's Pearson Spector Lit, but he just says Pearson Spector, and I thought that, I don't know, I just laughed way too hard at that, just to spite Lewis, right? And I don't know, it could be, he's spiting Lewis, or he just doesn't know and he just said Pearson Spector. Because the Lit's pretty new, right? I mean, I think it's been out, though, since, season 4 finale? Or season 5-ish? So, it's been there, for 2 seasons for us, but I don't think that much time has passed in the actual show world. So, yeah, that was kind of funny. But then, things get kind of serious. Lawyer calls Brian a bad father and a bad lawyer. Which, is just too far. I mean, you don't really say that to another guy. And this guy, just kind of a dick, right? All in all. And, thankfully though, Brian stands up to him, says he's filing a restraining order against him, and confronts him about what he just said, and how he's not going to take it or whatever. So I was really happy that Brian stood up to him and said something, because this guy really, he can't let him get away with that. So he threatens all this and says all this, and then Lewis kind of gives him a look and walks out. So that was kind of a finishing touches on the scene there. So yeah, that was kind of cool. So then we see Robert Zane from last episode. He comes to Rachel and asks if she will work together with him on a pro bono case, and it's about basically this bank discriminating against African Americans. So definitely, right up his alley sort of case. After we learned sort of more of his background last episode about how he likes or not likes, but how he fights for that, and how he wants to stand for that sort of stuff, fighting against that discrimination stuff. And he really touched on that last episode, so that was a good leeway into this. So he offers her to work together with him on this case, and Rachel gladly accepts, of course. So they kind of form a partnership, and Rachel, I think, says Zane and Zane or something like that. So that was kind of cool. And I just want to mention the pro bono with Jessica, back when Rachel did that with Jessica last season, the last 6 episodes there, or no, I think it was maybe the first 10 of the finale of the first 10. They had the pro bono with Jessica, I think it was second the last 6, but she did that case with Jessica, and I really liked that storyline. I thought Rachel did great in that role. I think she her and Jessica worked together well, and I just want to see that Rachel again, right? I mean, this whole season she's kind of had a iffy storyline here. She's maybe helped out Mike and Harvey once or twice, but she doesn't really have much of a purpose this season, except for crying and fighting with Mike. That's I'm being a little critical, but that's sort of what I've gotten out of her this season so far. And I just want to see that Rachel again, where she has a storyline, and we really get to see more of her character kind of come out. So yeah, I'm really happy to see that brought up again, and that hopefully this will be sort of the same deal. So then Harvey and Mike meet with this judge, tell him that they have evidence of Malik saying that he doesn't care if the woman is guilty or not, if their client is. So this is a big deal, obviously, because Harvey says public servants that he should care if she's guilty or innocent, and that could even get him thrown off the case. So they recorded it on tape during that deposition that we saw a little bit earlier. The judge tells Malik that he has 24 hours to get evidence against the client, Harvey's client, or the case will be thrown out. So I think the judge should have just thrown him off right there and then after the stuff he says, and he's even swearing at Harvey in the chambers. So I don't know about that. I think that I think he should have just got thrown off right then. But he gives him 24 hours to get evidence, and tells him if you don't, that's it. So definitely a good offensive move by Harvey and Mike, and they kind of know that that Malik doesn't have any evidence, so they think that they've kind of won. So this is their victory lap sort of thing, right? But obviously, later on, we know they don't. So then this lawyer, Hank, calls Lewis, and Lewis thinks he's going to be crying. He said, "Why aren't you crying?" or something like that, after Brian sends this restraining order over to him. And it's kind of a funny scene as well. But then Lewis finds out that Brian messed up the restraining order, and that now Hank and that company can now sue them, because I think it was because he used the word inferior or something in the restraining order, so that was a big deal, a huge mess up by Brian there. But then when he's on the phone with this guy, Lewis is kind of imagining the lawyer saying things about Sheila. He says, I'm Sheila's fiance, and I know that you slept with her and stuff. So we just see more of that guilt coming through. And at the time when I'm watching this, I knew that it wasn't him, but it seemed really realistic that like this is the fiance. After a few seconds, I'm like, is it really? But no, it's just Lewis imagining it, and it just shows us more of the guilt that he has for what he did, his actions with Sheila. So yeah, that was kind of an overall theme in this episode as well. That just Lewis's guilt and how he feels about this. So that was interesting and well done as well. So then, of course, after he gets off the phone, Lewis confronts Brian about the order. Says about the restraining order. Says he used the word inferior, and obviously that's not that's not what he was supposed to do. And he basically chews Brian a new asshole here. He really went off on him. He calls him names and basically tells him that he's off the case for what he did. So, definitely abusive, definitely, this is kind of like Stephanie Patel. Like, he didn't go quite as personal, of course, but, he calling him names and swearing at him and all that. It was a pretty big mistake, it was, but definitely Brian did not deserve, the wrath of Lewis. So that was kind of a tough scene to watch, if you like Brian, and I think we all kind of do. We all have some sort of sympathy for him. With being kind of overshadowed by Lewis at this point. So then Gretchen confronts Lewis in the bathroom, and I'm surprised there wasn't a big fight scene this time, although it kind of was. It was a verbal fight. Fights always happen in the bathroom in this show. So she confronts him, and he basically threatens to fire her. So this is pretty big. I mean, someone getting fired in this show is literally like a death. In a regular drama, show where, stuff happens, there's gore. Firing is basically like a death in this show. So that's a big threat that Lewis says. We just kind of see more of Lewis's emotions. He's basically going crazy again. With all the stuff he's saying. This is kind of just like episode 3, I think it was, Mudmare, where he just went off the rails, and and that the thing happened with Stephanie Patel. I think that was that episode. So we just kind of see that same Lewis coming out, and why do we keep seeing that, right? It's just sort of kind of feel bad for Lewis in a way, because he can't really control what he's doing. He's not in control of his emotions. And also I feel sorry for Gretchen in that scenario, but she's badass. I mean, she confronts him and completely stands up to him. She said, "You're not gonna fire me," or whatever. So and she's totally right. I mean, Lewis would never fire her. So I really like that part of Gretchen, though, that we saw. So that was good. But I also want to say, I don't know, this whole Lewis kind of going off the rails sort of thing, and becoming crazy after something that has happened to him, or something that he's done. I think it's just getting a little old at this point. I think I like it when it happens, because it really shows the dynamics of Lewis's character. And Rick Hoffman does a great job acting as well, who plays Lewis. But I think that we've seen a lot of it this season, and I think it's kind of getting old. So I think, how well it is being done is kind of being overlooked here, just because we're so used to it. That's just my 2 cents. So then we see Malik brings over this newspaper article, and it supposedly contains evidence against them. So he, published some article, and he says this is coming out tomorrow or something like that. And Mike and Harvey are kind of confused, and it sort of ends their sort of honeymoon here for winning this case. Malik kind of surprises them and comes by with this newspaper, and on his way out, Malik insults Donna and said, you're still in the same place as you were, 10 years ago or something like that. And she stands up for herself. She gets a good comeback in. I would have loved to see Harvey say something to him and put him in his place for saying something to Donna in that situation. But Donna standing up for herself was good to see as well. Good to see that, she's strong like that. She doesn't let, anybody walk over her. So, yeah. So then Brian tries to resign. He's given his resignation letter to Lewis. But Gretchen actually comes in and, asks him what he's doing, and he tells her she stands up for Lewis and basically insults Brian, saying, he made a big mistake. Maybe, he may have even lost them a client. Stuff like that really, puts it to him hard. And this comes even after Lewis just threatened to fire her in the washroom. She stands up for him. So that really shows more of Gretchen's character about, how devoted she is to Lewis and the firm. And yeah, we haven't seen Gretchen, by the way, in a little bit. So good to see her again. Well, I think we saw her last episode, but only, I think, for 1 or 2 scenes. So it's good to see her again. And yeah, so yeah, it was great to see that after Lewis has just threatened to fire her. I mean, that's a big deal. And she just comes back, stands up for him. And personally, I think it was a very bad way of doing it to Brian, insulting him again after, just kind of putting salt on the wounds that Lewis created. But it worked, I guess, in the end. What she said, and she got through to Lewis, or not Lewis, Brian, and it works, and she convinces him to stay, and not resign. So yeah, that was a good thing that Gretchen did. Letting Brian resign probably wouldn't be the best for the firm. So yeah, and the stuff that happens next wouldn't have happened. So then, next scene we see Brian. He makes up for what he did. And he basically finds this new way to get back at them, and finds basically a way to win the case, and gives it to Lewis. Lewis says, you did a great job with this and stuff, and he also, says you're a good father, and kind of makes up with them, has sort of a bonding little conversation there with Brian, and, for the most part, they kind of make up. I think that, and Lewis apologizes for what happened before, so that was a good part to see with Lewis as well. To see, he's kind of recognizing that, and he's sorry for what he did to Brian. So yeah, that was an interesting scene. And then probably my favorite quote from this episode, and I'm not sure if on I didn't see this one live, so I'm not sure if this was actually on TV, because I don't think they can say this on TV. But this is they probably just sort of bleeped it or whatever. But this is a quote that Lewis said. He said, "We're gonna go smack these nipple-stealing motherfuckers," right? And that was a great quote. I just love it. Like, it's totally something Lewis would say, right? And that was funny. That was really funny. And yeah, so they basically win this case together. We don't see anything after that, so we can kind of just assume that they won. And yeah, good to see them working together and getting stuff done. Yeah, really good. So then Malik has a trick up his sleeve when they go to court the next day. And, this guy's really smart, because he had Harvey and Smike and Spike, Harvey and Mike in a real tough predicament here, because, either way, if they went to try to find this document that was in the article, then he would have, submitted for discovery and he would have been able to see it. But if they didn't go and get the document, then this plan works. So he basically had them both ways. It's like, when you're playing X and O's with someone and you have, them multiple ways, they can't do anything about it, you won. This is kind of what Malik had in this, He totally outsmarted them here, even outsmarted Mike. That's pretty hard to do. So basically, Harvey and Mike fall for the bait with the newspaper. They don't find the document that he refers to, which basically helps Malik's whole plan of painting the picture that Harvey tampered with evidence, and he tells the judge that he thinks Harvey is hiding the document that was in the newspaper article. So that's a big, accusation, right, to throw around. And I mean, Malik's not wrong though, right? Because we know Harvey withheld evidence before with Cameron Dennis, and Malik was present in the office at that time, so he knows. Now, he probably doesn't have evidence of it, of course, but he kind of knows that Harvey did that. So he's going to bring that up. He's going to use it against him. And it basically, his plan works. And the judge lets him try to prove it. He says, we'll resume in 2 days. And if you don't have proof, then, we'll put Malik in front of the board or whatever. And I don't think he's going to get disbarred, but I don't think he's definitely going to lose his reputation here with his streak. So, yeah. So then, after that, Donna tells Harvey and Mike that she was subpoenaed by Malik and for his evidence against Harvey. So that's basically how he's going to paint the story, that Harvey, withheld evidence. And he's assuming that Donna knew about it. So Mike then suggests a mock trial again and says Lewis needs to depose Donna, to get her ready for what Malik is going to say. And Mike and Harvey and Donna will talk about the last time it happened. And, I barely remember that, really. Long time ago. I think Daniel Hardman was there. They showed in the previously scene, so I saw a little bit of it. And Daniel Hardman was playing the judge at that point. So, yeah, I barely remember that, but it was a while ago. But it didn't go well for Donna or Lewis. Lewis went, way too far into Donna's past and, her love for Harvey and stuff. So it got really ugly. But basically, Donna says they need to do it again because she needs to be prepared for Malik. And she thinks that this one's actually going to be worse than the last time. So that's going to be pretty bad. And obviously Harvey's not happy about it, but he knows, it's probably for the better. So they basically, all three of them then, or two of them, Harvey and Donna go to Lewis and they ask him if he will depose her basically for the mock trial practice. And he agrees to do it for Donna. So, after a little bit of poking and prodding, he agrees. So, yeah, setting up a great scene or scenes for next week's episode there. It'll be amazing to see that again. Lewis, going ape shit on Donna, right? So I hope it doesn't get too deep. And, Lewis is kind of recovering here as we see in this episode. So maybe he kind of might snap back into it and might bring up some stuff about the Sheila thing. I don't know. I think it's going to be ugly, but I think it's going to be really entertaining. So we'll have to wait and see for that. So that'd be cool. So then Robert tells Rachel the real reason he's working on this pro bono case. There's always a reason for this. And he also, before we kind of saw him, lose his shit at the one worker. So we kind of knew something was up here. And basically we find out that Rachel's aunt, and I'm guessing it's Robert's sister. I'm not sure, though. Worked for the CEO they are up against, that they're kind of, charging. And we find out that she was abused by him and ended up getting fired by him when she threatened to, go to the police or something. And then she later died a few years after. So I'm not sure. He didn't really clarify if she died, as a result of this. And maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I'm not sure. But obviously, a big deal for something like that to happen. And like I said, I'm not sure if it's related, but still, a loss for the family. And if it is related, then that's even worse, and that's just horrible. So Robert says he didn't help her then. He didn't help her, and to fight it back then. And after he's been watching Mike fight this prison case, he knew that he had to do something about it. And so yeah, he kind of was watching, and then he found this basically this case against the CEO. And he already knows he's dirty, right, from the past, from Rachel's aunt being there. So, he kind of figures it out, and that's how he got this case. So it's going to get really personal, or it is personal for Robert, going to get personal for Rachel now that she knows the truth, and it's going to be really interesting how they decide to fight this one. But I think it's going to be ugly, again, just like the other one. I think it's going to get pretty, deep. I think Robert's going to bring that up, and obviously, it's not really, he can't really use that as part of his case. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting though, and I'm really, really interested in seeing how they work together for this, and if they end up staying as partners on this case and end up winning it. So we'll have to see next week. I don't see that as a thing that they can wrap up in one episode though. I think that's maybe going to carry on to the last 6 episodes in this season, but we'll have to see. So then at the very end of the episode here, we see Lewis going to Brian's apartment, and he takes his baby from him, which is kind of a cool scene. And he basically offers to take the night shift for Brian, and just, a nice thing for him to do. And, obviously all this stuff was mentioned earlier when Brian told him about, how he has the late shift and stuff. And, really great strides made after, Lewis meets with Lipschitz in his office. We see that happen. So, yeah, really, great strides from that, that he goes, apologizes to Brian again, and sort of makes it up to him for his actions. And yeah, it was just a warm moment to watch Lewis with a baby, kind of crazy in a way, right? A little insane, but it was interesting. So And also, remember, he's talking to Sheila about having a baby, so it kind of, brings that thought back as well. And I just like to say, great song choice during that scene, and I think it started the scene before Dawn and Rachel as well. So yeah, so that was great song choice for that. And as always, Suits always has a great soundtrack. And yeah, you'll hear that song at the end of this review. But anyways, that'll just do it for the recap for this one. And now I will get to my rating. So for this episode, my rating is going to be a 4 out of 5. So 4 even. Yeah, I liked it. I feel like it was a bridge episode as well, though, so I can't, give it too much of a rating, compared to episodes like last week. But I thought it did really well in coming back and, gaining interest again, getting a lot of new stories started and, starting this whole thing with Malik is really cool to see. And, yeah, so I think it sets up a lot of stuff for next week, mainly. So that's part of the, that's mainly the good stuff in this. Stuff with Lewis, again, seeing that, wasn't a huge fan of, but, it's interesting. Robert working with Rachel, really good positive there. Like I said, I didn't really like the whole way that they brought Malik up, that they gave him all this background, and we had never seen him before, but, that's, I'm okay with it. It wasn't, I feel like they could have done it differently. Yeah, there's a lot of focus on Lewis this episode and that stuff, so that kind of brought it down for me. I do like the Brian character, though. I felt like he's good, and the actor who plays him is doing a good job. And I like the parts with Gretchen as well, how she kind of stood up against Lewis and also, stood for him with Brian as well. So that was good. And yeah, and a great song at the end of the episode as always. And yeah, so I really like the way it's going. Like I said, this mainly just sets up for next week. So I think next week is going to really tell us, how good this episode was. So yeah, I'm excited for that one, and we'll have to see how it is. I don't think everything in this episode is going to be wrapped up in next one. I think that'd be really hard to do in 42 or 43 minutes, but we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, so my favorite character for this one, it's going to be Mike Ross. Patrick J. Adams plays him, of course. I just like the way that he brought this case against Malik to Harvey, kind of making it up for all the stuff, he's put Harvey through in the last little few episodes. And, just the way he helps him out with it. He really goes after Malik here. And he's kind of the voice of reason throughout this episode with Harvey. Kind of figures out things, helps Harvey a lot. Tells him, about, that they can't find the document and stuff like that. So really, just good thing to see Mike, doing that. And I really like to see Mark and Harvey working together again. Haven't seen that in good 4 or 5 episodes. So that was nice to see again as well. There was some other characters I liked too, like Brian, he did well. Lewis, I liked him in this episode. Gretchen as well, but she didn't get a lot of screen time. She doesn't usually. So yeah, and I liked Harvey as well in this, but I felt like Mike was sort of the brains of what was going on. I felt like he came up with a lot of this stuff really quick, as he usually does. So anyways, yeah, Mike Ross, Patrick Adams doing an amazing job. And I forgot to mention last week, but he actually directed episode 100, and that's a pretty big, accomplishment, right? For him to direct episode 100, it being, the magnitude that it is, was really big, and really good job for Patrick for doing that. He did a great job, obviously. So anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for the review for this episode, and only one episode left, last episode of the I guess it's the summer schedule, and then we'll get 6 in January or February-ish. So anyways, guys, we will see you for next week for Suits Season 7, Episode 10, Mid-Season Finale.
This one goes out to the one I love. This one goes out to the one I left behind.